Hello, am I audible now? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So let us start our class today. Okay. So before starting our class, let us briefly look into what we have been studying in the last class. So in the last class, we studied what is the fermentations, what are the ranges of the products that can be produced from the fermentation. Then we have studied, for example, the different classification of the products, right? We saw that there are three ways in which we can classify the products, and what are the different examples of those, and what are the factors which play a crucial role in the production of, for example, the low value products or the mid value or the high value products. So, what are the factors which play a which play an important role in the terms of both, for example, the economic part for a production process, or as well as the technical part, like for example, in the case of the high value products, whatever the R&D, the research and development that is being done, that actually have a significant major emphasis on the product development or the overall cost. And for example, the nutrients or the other machinery cost or the equipment cost that is being there have a minor factors. Okay. So like this, similarly for the case of the low value products or the mid value products, you have the duration of the fermentation and the nutrient cost, or mean the initial substrate cost that is required for development of any fermentation is actually very much important. Similarly, in the case of low value products, the cost of the material or the raw materials that are required for the growth of the microorganisms in a fermenter plays a significant role. Then the time for the fermentations, okay, and the cost of the utilities. So the different components or the parts or the equipments that are there that is required for both the upstream as well as the downstream processes. So that has plays a major role. So we are going to look into those things, that what are the downstream and upstream processes and all those things in our classes. And then we saw what are the range of products. So it can be either the biomass itself, that is the cells that are being produced at a very high concentrations. It can be the enzymes that are released. Okay, so we have seen that it can be the intercellular or the extracellular products, for example, or that the metabolites. We have seen that it can be classified into two types, either the primary and the secondary metabolites. What are the definition of those of the primary and secondary metabolites? Or it can be a compound or a compound or any chemical which is added to the fermentation system, and that particular chemical is being converted into your bioproduct or your targeted product by the action of the enzymes or the cells. So here the enzymes or the cells acts as a catalyst, and it converts, for example, the targeted compound, okay, into your particular bioproduct. Then we have seen the chronological development, right? That how in the different from 19th, 20th, 21st century, what are the advancements made in the terms of the product development. So we can see that that low value products, earlier the food based products like alcohols, vinegars, some citric acid, lactic acid, so low value products were developed. But after that, the development of the hormones or the medicines are being currently, like vaccines are being done, so which is having the higher value. So we can see that how the low value products, the shift in the low value to the high value products are being carried out using the fermentation on these bioprocess technologies. And then what is the advancement in terms of the reactor systems, reactor design, what are the process controls that are being that are there in the that is used in the reactor systems. What are the culture methods? Is it a batch fed batch or the perfusion type of culture, which is basically nothing but a continuous culture? And then how do we quality control the product that is produced? And then what is the important factor is the strain selection, so that the microorganisms that we are selecting for the production of any particular targeted biochemicals, how means the strain selection is there, and there are different techniques of mutations or the genetic engineering approaches through which we can engineer or design microorganisms in such a way that it can be means for example it can produce a particular targeted your bioproduct. Okay, then there are other things like when you are means growing the microorganism in big reactors, so what happens, the temperature is very high. Okay, or the stresses because of the different impellers and agitators. So if you see any bioreactor, large scale bioreactor, we have a impeller, okay, or the means the aerators. So where we pass, for example, the oxygen gases. So in the case of the industrial scale fermenters, a lot of stress is generated. So and also when the microorganisms are carrying out a particular microbial activity, okay, so a lot of means the heat is generated. Okay, so generally it is a exothermic process, the microbial metabolism. So in that case, when the temperature is higher, and to maintain an adequate temperature, you need to provide a means a cooling system or cooling jacket. So that is going to add to the cost of the process. So if you can design or develop microorganisms which can grow at a higher temperature, for example, then the cost of this process or the economics is going to be feasible or favorable. So like this, we can carry out different strain selection, screening, and strain modification strategies that we are going to look from in the today's class, and then we look into what is a generalized scheme for the typical fermentation process. Like it starts with the basic inoculum development. Okay, then you have to maintain the sterile conditions. So that we have already told that whenever you are doing a fermentation process or any biological process, you need to maintain a sterile condition such that the contaminations from the other microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, yeast, fungi, doesn't take place. Okay, because if you have, for example, a fermenter, okay, and you have, for example, your targeted cells, right? And suppose you have some sort of a contaminants, okay, like bacteria or a virus or any other yeast, for example. So what is they are going to do? They are going to compete with these desired targeted microorganisms for the carbon sources and the nutrients and so on. Okay, so the available uh, nutrients that is required for the growth of your targeted cells to get higher biomass concentration would not be available. Okay, so that's why we need to get always the sterile conditions. How? So we have to select design the sterilization processes, which one, like means we talked about the sterilization process, like we have the autoclave or we have the filtration waste, and there are several types of sterilization techniques are there, so we look into those things. Okay, so which will be the second part of our study, and the first part will be the inoculum development or the stain developments. So that is what we are going to study in this today's class, and then comes the third part, which is the production of the fermenters, where we look into the designs of these type of impellers, the agitators, and means what are the different types of the fermenter systems are there, and depending upon the microorganisms, depending upon the product that is being produced, we can select the appropriate type of the fermenter. Okay, and then after, for example, your targeted product is produced, okay, in the fermenter you need to carry out the several downstream processes. Okay, which will be the fourth part of our this discussion. Okay, so this will, so each and every part we are going to discuss it in detail in every class, and we also looked into what is the different types of the reactors, right? So what is a batch reactor, we know. What is a fed batch, right, a reactor, we know. And what is a perfusion reactor, or it is also some sort of a continuous bioreactor, so where the product that is produced is being continuously removed, and the biomass, that is the cells that are grown, that are actually returned back or recycled back to the fermenter, so that the overall concentration of the biomass or the cell is actually increasing with the time. So these are the three classifications of the reactors, but we have not yet looked into the mathematical expressions, especially the mass balance and the energy balance expressions for this type of these three reactors, which we will be doing it very soon. So as of now, everyone needs to understand the very basic fundamentals on the what are the three types of the reactors and what are their applications and their uses. Okay. So coming to the summary that what we have learned. So I hope everyone can, for example, answer the following questions. So for example, let us means the question number one, like what are the ranges of the fermentation processes and the products, right? So means what is actually basically a fermentation and what types of means like we have the cell mass or the metabolites or those things as the product. So what are the products that are generated in the fermentation processes? Then we have seen what is the different classifications of the bioproducts, and you should know that what are the means examples of each of the classifications. Okay, and then we have also seen what are the factors that play a crucial role in the fermentation of this type of the three types of these type of bioproducts that are there. So as we have already told that we would be having a discussion during this part. So can any one of you tell Anand Kesav? Anand, can you tell what are the this different classification of the bioproducts? Hmm? So, as I already told you, depending upon our interaction, so I am going to actually mark on that if I mean so if you are able to answer the questions. So, as I told you that we will be having the interactions. So, 2 or 3 times I will be calling up your name and asking you the questions, and you have to respond back. Huh? So, anyone else?
So,
Hmm.
bioenergy, biochemicals, and biomaterials.
Okay, good. So there are three. These are the three classifications of that, and so can anyone tell what is the difference between the primary metabolites and the secondary metabolites? We have already seen, right? Anyone? Okay. And can
Sir,
anyone?
the primary
Yes,
metabolites.
yes, yes,
Hello.
yes, Aditi, tell.
Yes, sir. So the primary metabolites, they are responsible and are used for growth, and they are mainly produced during the log phase, while the secondary metabolites, they are produced during the stationary phase.
Yes. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. And coming to the question number six, anyone? What is the difference between batch, fed batch, and the perfusion reactors? Hmm? Rituraj, Ujjwal, anyone?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell what is the difference between the batch, fed batch, and perfusion reactors? Hmm? Do you know?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Anyone else? Alpesh?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember what is the batch, fed batch, and perfusion reactor?
No, sir. No, sir.
Huh? Anyway, so whenever I am uploading the slides, please go through them. Okay. Anyway, so we have looked into the difference of what is the batch, fed batch, and the perfusion reactors. We just discussed now also, right? That in the case of the fed batch reactors, we have the substrates that are being added continuously with time in such a way that the concentration of the substrate doesn't cross a particular threshold limit, right? So if we plot a substrate concentration with respect to time, it should be constant because some of the microbes have the inhibition towards the substrate. So at above a particular threshold concentration of that substrate, it is going to inhibit the growth of the bacteria. So that means the biomass production is going to decrease. So in that case, we intermediately add a small amounts of the substrate at a particular time interval. So that in this case, suppose this means the substrate concentration is supposed to changing with time. So very small volume of the substrate is added in the fermenter system such that it doesn't cross a threshold limit within that whole fermentation system. Okay. So in this way, we are able to overcome the inhibition of the substrate on the microbial growth. In the case of the perfusion, if that microbe has a product inhibition, that means when the product is produced at a means the products are the concentration of product is increasing with time. It is found that after a particular threshold concentration, the product starts to inhibit the microbial growth within the fermenter. So what we do is we take out whenever the product is produced, we take out that product, we filter out, we separate the product, okay, and we because we know that when you are taking out a growth media, it will have the growth media components, right? It will have the biomass, the cell biomass, and it will have your product. So what we do is we removed out the product, and whatever remaining, the media components and the biomass, that is being returned back to the cells, to the reactor, right? So that the overall biomass concentration and overall growth media components remains means increases or remains the same. For example, the growth media component will remain same, but the biomass concentration, that is the cell concentration, will increase with time. So this is a very basic. So this is the case in which means the product is inhibiting the growth of the microorganisms, and that's why the product is taken out continuously from the reactor system. So this is a very basic difference in the batch, fed batch, and the perfusion reactors. So anyway, so whoever answered, I have just marked them, and everyone should go through the slides to that and find that they should be able to answer the following questions. And there are some two papers that I have added where you can go through them, have a look on that to understand the overview what we have studied, like what is the industrial systems biology, and second paper is on the from the first drop to the first truckload, the commercialization of the microbial processes for renewable chemicals. So this paper actually gives you a brief overview on how that the first drop means it is a lab scale production of a particular biochemical, and the truckload means it is a large scale production of that particular biochemical. So what are in between, there is several things that occurs. Okay, so in terms of both the biological phenomena as well as the engineering aspects, technological aspects, and several things are there. So how that is what is the main core understandings that we will be studying in this particular course. Okay, and so for that biochemicals, so that it is now means it can be commercialized. So that is the main objective, that when you scale up your lab scale biochemical to the larger scale process, they should end up in the market and the commercialization. So what are the very basics overview? So this is actually described in this particular paper. So if you cannot find these articles, you can ask me. So I will upload in the class materials. Anyway, so in the today's class, we will be talking on that unit 2, which is on the substrates of the fermentation. Okay, so though the name suggests that it is the substrate, but we are going to look into the different components of the fermentation processes that we talked about, like the upstream processing, the midstream processing, and the downstream processing. So because we have a wide audience from different background, So we need to understand, I guess I will be going through the very basics of these things, like in the upstream, that what are the techniques and what are the process in which we can screen and develop the strains suitable for the industrial microorganisms or industrial systems. And then how do we preserve those strains? So one of the very important thing in the case of any biochemical industry is that since the microorganism is the main target, main material or main target which is used for the production of any particular biochemical, for example, the alcoholic beverages. Okay, so it is very much important that particular microorganisms are preserved. Okay, so if the microorganisms undergoes any particular changes, and then for example the quality, the taste, for especially for the alcohol beverages and other food based products, in those type of cases, the microorganism, if there is some variation, the quality, the taste, and means the product properties, that is going to significantly vary. So that is something that cannot be, means that is not acceptable, especially when you are developing some commercial food based products and so on. So we need to develop some strategies that how we can preserve that stain such that the product quality and the product means properties doesn't changes with every fermentation batches that we are doing in the bioreactors. In the midstream processing, we will be studying the fermentation system. So what are the different bioreactor designs that are there, and how do we select those bioreactor designs depending upon your targeted biochemicals you are going to produce and their classifications and all those things we are going to see. And in the downstream, we'll see the what are the separation and the purification steps. So in this particular topic, we will mostly focus on the upstream and midstreams things. And when we are taking, for example, the different case studies, okay, like the production of the antibiotics and the production of different other biochemicals that we have discussed already. In that case, we will be studying the downstream processes, because each and every product purifications requires different downstream techniques and purifications techniques. Okay, so let us look into the brief overview of what are the system strategies for developing the industrial microbial stain. So as we already talked about that, first step is the for development of any biochemical process. So this actually shows you the overall chart, or means overall strategies to produce any particular biochemicals. That you will start with the strain development, that you develop or engineer your microorganisms to produce, for example, a particular biochemicals. Okay, and you make sure that some other bioproducts that are being produced are not generated. So we can engineer the microbial stains in such a way that we can always go for a production of a particular biochemicals, and the bioproducts that are produced that are not generated or actually removed. So we will see what is the characteristics of the industrial microbial stains first of all, and what are the strategies how we can do the development. So in that case, there are different methods for that. So first we have to select a microbial host, right? So you have to find out what is a natural stain which is producing your particular biochemical, or you have to find out a particular microbial systems that are there, and then you have to carry out several other things, like you have to construct a biosynthetic pathway, okay, for a non-native bioproduct. What is means the biosynthetic pathway? So as already discussed with you in the last classes, that each and every microorganisms follow a particular biochemical biosynthesis pathway. Okay, so there are different types of biochemical pathways. So like we have the glucose pathway, TCA, tricarboxylic acid cycle. So we're going to look into those pathways. So you have to first of all select the microbial host, and then make sure that a particular biochemical pathway or biosynthetic pathway is followed by those microorganisms to you produce a particular, for example, a bioproduct or a targeted bioproduct you are going to produce. Then other thing is the improvement of the strains, so that against a bioproduct. So we already talked about in the case of this the byproducts, so that sometimes if the threshold concentration of the product or the threshold concentration of the substrate is higher, then we know that it is inhibiting the growth of the microorganism. So how we can improve that. So why is it needed? It is needed because if you want to have a high product concentration, then you have to start with the high substrate concentration, right? So initial substrate concentration in the fermenter should be high, then only the product that will be formed will be higher. Okay, so that's why it is important that we develop a stain which can withstand the high substrate concentration or the high source concentration of the carbon source or the food that is required for the growth of the microorganism. Then only the higher amount of biomass and higher amount of product will be produced in the fermentation reactor. Then we have to work on removal of the negative regulation. So generally we will look into that, what is a positive and a negative regulation. So in the microorganisms we have the genes, right? So some genes are responsible. So each and every genes in the DNA are responsible for the production of a particular biochemical. So those genes can be actually, if it is some genes which are responsible for the production of your targeted biochemical, so we have to upregulate that particular genes. And if there are some genes which are responsible for the production of the byproducts which are not desirable, then that we have to downregulate, right? So we can upregulate or downregulate that those particular genes within the microbial stain. And then there's a fifth point, that is the flux rerouting for cofactors and precursor operation. So in any particular biochemical pathways, like we have, for example, seen, if you look into one of the biochemical pathways, okay, yeah, if you see this biochemical pathway that we have seen, so each and every biochemical pathways requires some sort of an enzyme. Okay, and for the activation of the enzyme, they require some sort of a cofactors. So we need to optimize, for example, the different concentrations and yields, means what is at what concentrations you need to add this type of cofactors, and at what concentrations you need to add the precursor, for example. Okay, so the optimization is required in those terms. So sometimes that means we need to always add optimum concentration of the cofactor, and that should be present in this fermentation media, so that the means the higher concentration of the products or desired products are produced. Then comes the sixth point, the optimization of the metabolic fluxes through relevant biosynthetic pathways. So that whatever the biosynthetic pathway is there, right, the series of biochemical steps or processes carries on. So that it requires optimization of that steps. And then comes some advanced techniques, okay, which I will not go into detail, like the seventh point, which is the use of high throughput tools for system tools metabolic analysis. So these days, some of the tools, such as based on the bioinformatics, actually you can simulate and find out this targeted gene sequence, and you can do a lot of means this is basically based on the computational system, computational techniques, where you can select a particular gene, right, and which is responsible for the production of that particular biochemical, and you can do several modifications, means in the computational system, and see that what modifications brings what effects or what advantages to the strain development. And you can do those things in the computational tools, and then you can replicate it in the labs. Okay, so that actually reduces your time or the lab activity, because lab activities are generally, especially in the strain developments where we use genetic engineering and other things, and they are very costly, and the success rate is very less. Okay, so if we get some sort of a computational tools where we can screen out the different, for example, the different gene sequence and different targets. Okay, so it will reduce the number of that lab-based experiments that will be required to get a stain which will have the means the highest yield and the highest best quality as overall. Okay, so that's why, so these are the steps that are there in the stain development. Okay, so we are going to look into those, how we are going to do that. And then the fermentation processes, which I will not go in detail. So this will be your second part and the third part. So in the second part, we will see the optimization of the culture conditions, and then how much growth media, what are the different components, and how do we optimize those things. Then the performance equations of this, we will see the mathematical models and all those things when the for the batch, fed batch, and the perfusion reactors. And then comes the scale up of the bioreactor. So from the lab scale to the pilot plant scale and to the for example to the large scale, how do we scale up those systems? And for that means how, what are the parameters that we are going to look into that. So if you see in the research of the industries, so if you are going to start with any new process, for example, or production of any new biochemical, so each and every this first step, the upstream process, the midstream process, and the downstream process, they are actually means carried out to means in the iterative way, in a repetitive way. Yeah. So the optimization of this first thing is done. Okay. Then second, optimization of the fermentation system, the bioreactor design and the processes, the optimization media, growth media, and all those things are done. And then in the third, these appropriate downstream processes are there so that it can be efficiently the product can be efficiently purified or separated out with the higher yield and the higher concentration. So like you can see these two and two means forward and backward arrows. So actually it's require a lot of repetitions and iterations to finally get ideal stain and an ideal fermentation reactor designs, and then ideal optimized separation and purification steps to get the final product which is of highest quality and the highest concentration. Okay, so this is a very basic overview, and we'll start with the stain development in the today's class. And before that, let us see what is difference between the wild stain, okay, and an industrial stain. So means so there are several particular characteristics that are there which actually define the industrial stain, and there are either I mean so there is a characteristics of the wild stain. So what is this wild stain? Means any natural stain. Wild stain is nothing but any natural microorganisms which are known to produce, for example, any particular biochemical for such. So, for example, if you see means so in this case of the wild stains or the natural stains, what is the thing is that for example, if you are for example, if you see in the microbes which are produced in the volcanic rocks. Okay, so those microbes are, for example, known to produce some of the compounds like the sulfur. Okay, so if you see the volcanic rocks or the lakes which are in the volcanic region, so you will find that most of the lakes, for example, are reddish in color or yellowish in color, and the water actually, what I mean. So those is because of the release of the sulfur-based biochemicals. Okay, but in those type, but so those are the natural microorganisms which are releasing this type of compounds. But what is happening in those type of environment? We have the very a lot of mixture of microorganisms are there, right? So means there are some microorganisms who are producing some sort of a sulfur, and there are some microorganisms which are means some other microorganisms are also there. So that means they are actually present in form of a mixture, and it is not like they are producing at a very high concentration the sulfur, right? Because if you are doing any fermentation process in a fermenter, you would always like to have your biochemical to be produced or your product to be produced at very high concentration, right? So in that case, so that is not possible with the wild strain or the natural microorganisms, because if you see the natural microorganisms, they grow in a means under the conditions that it is utilizing different carbon sources depending upon the availability. Okay, so and it is growing in some uncontrolled temperature conditions, and it is producing your desired biochemical in a concentration which is means in the generally the concentration of those biochemicals that are produced are generally overall low. Okay, and it is also acting upon by different other mixture of the microorganisms that are there. So overall, actually, if you see the wild strain actually doesn't have poor means it have a poor reproducibility. That, and why the poor reproducibility is there? Because the growth rate here, it represents the how means the rate at which that cells grow, or these wild or natural microorganisms grow are actually lower. okay, and the rate at which the products are formed, okay, that is also significantly lower, because as I told you, uh, means in this type of, it is, they produce a different other, along with the sulfur, they also are responsible for production of other sort of biochemicals or the bioproducts, because it is not in any controlled condition. So the product formation is low, and then it comes the titer. So what is the titer means? Titer means nothing but the concentration of that product. Okay, so if you see the concentration of the sulfur in that, that will be generally low. The overall concentration will be low. But in the case of the fermenter or the bioreactor that we are designing using industrial strains, we would like to have a very high reproducibility. So as I told you, means we would like to have very high concentration of the sulfur, and that high concentration of the sulfur or the high concentration of any particular biochemicals should be reproducible, that it should be produced with every batch of the fermentations that has been carried out. And for obtaining such high reproducibility, it should have the higher production formation rates, right? And titer. So titer means it should also have the very high concentration. So whenever we have a bioreactor with a particular biochemical being produced using a particular microorganisms, so in that the overall production of, or the concentration of the product should be should be very high in this bioreactors. Okay, so this is what the characteristics of the industrial strain should have. And along with that, uh, like we already talked in this fed batch and the perfusion reactors. So generally, this wild stain, after the production of the product, until once it reaches a threshold concentration of the product, then it is means it is known to have an inhibitory effect. Okay, but we, in this case of industrial strains, we engineer the strains in such a way that it can withstand a very high concentration of the desired product. Okay, so that the means high concentration of the product as well as the substrate also. So if it can withstand the higher substrate concentration and the product, it can convert the higher fraction of the substrate into the product. So industrial strain actually are generally highly tolerant to this product and inhibition, and also they are highly tolerant to the changes in the temperature and the pH of the bioreactors in which it is being carried out. Okay, so and why it is required? So it is required for the genetic stability of the microorganism. So one of the challenges of the genetic engineering, so we means everyone probably by now have heard of the term the genetic engineering. So it is a technique in which we can modify the microorganisms to produce, for example, a desired with some foreign DNS to produce our targeted products and so. But what it has been found that when we have used these genetically modified organisms, okay, what happens? Their stability is a constant. So sometimes there is a strain reversal. That means during the fermentation process, there is some modification that goes on into the genes, okay, of those microorganisms, and they stopped producing the desired biochemicals after a certain period of time. Okay, so that is because they tend to have, for example, the poor genetic stability. So it is means in the case of the industrial strains, it is important that they have the high genetic stability, and such type of strain reversal should not takes place. Okay, and generally, if you see the wild strain or the natural strains, they have poor genetic stability, as it is being acted by the other environmental conditions continuously. Okay, then comes the utilization of the substrate. So mostly they are able to, in the case, because they grow under natural conditions. So in the natural conditions, you know that a particular type of the carbon source is not available. Okay, so they have the ability to use the different substrate. Okay, and in the case of the industrial strain, we try to develop a strain which can use the cheaper source of the substrate as well as a variety of the substrate. So both means it should be using the mixture of the substrate which is generally cheaper, because let us take an example of the production of the biofuel. Okay, so let us take the example of the ethanol production. So generally, everyone must have heard by now that by 2025, almost 10% of our petroleum products is means that 10% of the petrol is being 10% of ethanol is going to be added as an additive to the petrols, right? So so that's why means that is a major advancements that is going on, that we need to replace the 10% of a petroleum with this ethanol. And to achieve this, what the industries or the refineries trying to do, they are trying to use the agricultural biomass, right, for the production of this type of bioethanol or the ethanol. So if you see the agricultural biomass, they are composed of three components, right? So they are made up of, for example, the cellulose, okay, and they are made up of the second component, which is called hemicellulose, or they are made up of another component which is called the lignin, okay. So these are the three main components that are present in any biomass, and you have seen that the burning of the crops and all those things have the tremendous environmental effect. So if we can use this some sort of these agricultural waste biomasses into production of this type of biochemicals, which can be used as a biofuel additives, that will be the some of the advantages to us. So means especially in this particular area, the industrial stains are now being used to convert this agricultural biomass into the ethanol. And how it is being done? So this agricultural biomass that is containing cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin, that are hydrolyzed to produce. So what is a hydrolysis? So hydrolysis is a process in which the longer. So if you see this cellulose molecule, we know it's a some sort of a polymer. That means it's made up of the long chain of the glucose. Okay, so what we try to do is we try to hydrolyze these units. So what we do is we use the enzyme or use a chemical based process, and we break the cellulose into the glucose, okay, and hemicellulose into some sort of a pentose sugars, okay. So the glucose, you know, is a 6 carbon ring, okay, and using the hemicellulose we get a pentose, which is a 5 carbon sugars, okay, and we then degrade the lignin into some sort of a lignin monomers, okay. So if you see the lignin, generally it is nothing but if you see the chemical structure, it is nothing but it's some sort of a aromatic rings, aromatic ring is there, but it is a polymer, okay. So means a long chain of these benzene rings are there. So if you see this polymer, so cellulose is a polymer of a glucose, hemicellulose is a polymer of some pentose sugar, and lignin is a polymer of this type of phenolic compounds. So bacteria cannot actually directly consume this type of polymeric products or the bigger molecules. So they need to be broken down into the smaller derivatives. So we break down the cellulose to the glucose, then hemicellulose to so the pentose sugars, and then the lignin to the lignin monomers. And then this, so we can see if you take the agriculture biomass, so we generally have a mixture of these three components. Okay. So we design the means we select the microbial consortium or the microbes in such a way that they can actually individually consume these three components, and then convert these three components into your final product. Okay, so if in that case, what will happen? The overall conversion of the product or the yield will be significantly improved. Okay, so the one thing of the industrial stain is they should be able to use the cheaper source such as the agricultural biomass, and it should be able to convert the different variety of the biomasses, because these biomass, cheaper biomass generally have the mixture of different components, and if you need to purify them, then it will be adding the overall cost to it, right? So this is how this industrial stain are selected and compared to wild stain. And this already we discussed that generally the wild stain have poor substrate conversion into the, for example, the biomass or into the overall product. Okay, but in the case in the industrial stain, we generally have the very high substrate constant conversion, and we also since the substrate conversion is very high, overall the product formation or the biomass concentration that is being produced, okay, that is significantly higher. So these are the advantages of the wild stain. And if we look into the what are the general characteristics of the wild stain, so these are mostly a very theoretical theoretical components on, especially when we are going to study the staining and the screening of these microorganisms. It is mostly the theoretical approaches. What are the different protocols, techniques that are used that we are going to see. So let us look briefly what are the means the ideal characteristics. So generally 13 characteristics of the for the industrial stains. So one of them being it should be genetically stable. So we already discussed this part, that why it should be stable, and it should have a rapid cell growth. So that means the specific growth rate should be very high. Okay, then it should have a high rate of production that we already discussed of the desired product. So the overall product concentration should be higher. Then it should be able to utilize the inelastic substrate we already discussed. Then it should have a shorter time of fermentation. Why? The time of fermentation should be short, because if the fermentation time is longer, then it will add to the overall cost of the process. So we should have a fermentation process which has shorter time. Okay, and then the byproducts, whatever. So generally in the fermentation processes with the wild stain, we have the byproducts that are being generated, right? So if higher byproducts are generated, then the number of steps that are required in the downstream processing is going to increase. So that is going to add overall to the cost of the process. So we should have a fewer byproducts that are generated during the fermentation step. And this point also we studied that ability to undergo genetic manipulation. So if that particular microorganisms can be genetically modified, because not all microorganisms can be modified, means genetically modified. So there are different issues. We are going to look into that in our later classes. But if it can be means genetically modified, this is advantageous. So if you know any particular wild strain, or if you know, for example, the particular natural cells, okay, and if means for the production of particular product, or suppose the ethanol, and if it can be genetically modified, so these modifications can easily be carried out for the production of the ethanol as such. Okay, because if it cannot be modified, then means the techniques to obtain the industrial stain is going to become more complex. So if it is genetically modifiable, then we can easily means modify the targeted gene sequences. Okay, and we can get engineered industrial stain microorganisms which have the higher productivity of particular biochemical. Then it should be readily harvested. Okay, and then it should have reduced oxygen demand. So we already talked about that when we have a fermenter, we need to provide the adequate, depending upon the aerobic and anaerobic culture, we need to provide an adequate oxygen concentration within the fermenter, so that the maximum cell biomass. So that means that if the oxygen and the media components are present at the adequate concentration, what will happen? It will actually provide an ideal environment to increase the biomass. Okay, so uh, generally one of the major challenges of the providing an adequate oxygen is the solubility of the oxygen or any gas in the liquid. We know that the gas is not so much soluble in the liquid component, or for example in the fermentation system we are going to have the growth media component. So, and when you are, for example, sparging the oxygen from bottom of the tank, so the oxygen, what will happen, it will solubilize first, right, to the with the growth media, and then that solubilized oxygen is being taken upon by the cells. Okay, so what is happening in the case of bioreactor, the overall biomass concentration or the cell concentration is actually very much increasing time, and generally the demand of the oxygen will be increasing with the time. Okay, and after a certain time period, what is happening when the cell biomass concentration is very higher, it will not have the adequate oxygen for the growth. So it is always important that we have microorganisms which is having the reduced oxygen demand, okay, and the decreased foam formation. So that is another important part. What happens generally during the fermentation process, some proteins are released. Okay, the proteins that released by this type of microorganisms, and they come into contact with the for example the impeller and the agitator, and for example it is being used for the mixing and the sparging of the oxygen air, and what happens, there is a formation of some sort of a foam. Okay, and that foam actually means have known to have the inhibitory effects. So it is always important that we we modify the means we apply an industrial stain that actually have the reduced foam formation. Okay, and this foam formation, as I told you, is because of the proteins that are being released by the microorganisms, right? And they tend to have a lower surface tension, and because of that, they tend to form the some sort of a foam-like particles. Okay, so then comes the point number 5, the non-production of the undesirable compound. We already talked, and they should have a tolerance to the high concentration of the carbon or the nitrogen sources, right? That we already discussed, which forms the part of the substrate. And the point number 7 represents that it should be resistant to the infections of the bacteria. So we know that in industrial fermentation, there is a high possibility of contamination from the different microbials or the bacteriophages and so it should be resistance to the infections, and it should not undergo any contamination during the fermentation processes and so on. So we will. So these are the basic ideal characteristics of the industrial stain that you have to keep in mind when we are going to select a particular microorganisms for the fermentation processes in the industrial scale. Okay. So anyone has any questions or doubts until this point? Anyone? Okay, so if not, then we will continue our discussion on the stain development, the different techniques, and so on in our next class. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.